Hello, this is going to be a review for the movie The Master, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Amy Adams. And it's written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, which I don't think that I've seen any of his other movies, but I think that he does the movie There Will Be Blood, which was really popular a while back for the scene, the milkshake scene, where this guy says, "I'll drink your milkshake, I'll drink it up," and it was like a meme on the internet for a long time. But I think that I've heard it's a pretty good movie, There Will Be Blood. So I was pretty excited about this one, and I've seen the reviews for this one are really good. And, I always like to check out movies on Rotten Tomatoes, usually before I even watch it. This is going to be just my opinion on this movie. It was a gift to me, and I really appreciate that. I watched it. I've only watched it once, and I definitely would like to watch it again. I think the movie needs multiple viewings. And I will say there was nudity in it, which I didn't expect, but there's a few scenes, and usually, the scenes are mostly short. There's one scene that's a little longer with a lot of nude women in it, but it still goes by kind of quickly. Would the movie have been fine without that? Sure, but it does kind of go with the idea that the main character in this movie he kind of lives like an animal. All he does is drink and fight and thinks about sex. And so that's kind of the reason for that. But I'll read the back of the movie, I guess, to kind of give the plot. It says, a mind-bending cinematic landmark. Haunted by his past, World War II veteran and drifter Freddie Quell. Now, Joaquin Phoenix is Freddie Quell. The main movie that I know of Joaquin Phoenix for is Walk the Line, where he plays Johnny Cash, and I really like that movie a lot. He's like a totally different character in this movie. And Walk the Line, he's a little bit crazy here and there because, Johnny Cash drank and he got a little wild and, he had a rough life. But in this one, he's full-blown nuts, pretty much. And very convincing. His character, Freddie Quell, is so convincing that it's like, it's a person that if I was in the same room with him, I would be very uneasy. He plays a very unpredictable character and really wild. And it makes you, wonder, is Joaquin Phoenix really this crazy in real life? Or, was he this crazy at a past point in his life to where he can, draw this up and he's very familiar with that, or he's just a really, really good actor, or maybe all of them. Who knows? But he is a good actor because obviously he plays a different role in Walk the Line and other movies. One of my friends that I recommended this movie to, he liked it, and he said that all the movies that he's seen Joaquin Phoenix in, he's played a little bit of a crazy role, but he's full-blown nuts in this movie. So he's a World War II veteran and a drifter, Freddie Quell, and he crosses paths with a mysterious movement called the Cause. Okay, kind of like a cult led by Lancaster Dodd, also known as the Master. Lancaster Dodd, that is Philip Seymour Hoffman. And he also does a great role, and I've seen him in numerous other movies, usually as like a side character, and there's not a lot that come to mind right off the bat. I want to think that he was in the movie The 25th Hour, that I really like that with Edward Norton, and I know he's in a movie called Synecdoche, New York, which I haven't seen yet, but I've got it. It's supposed to be really good. I need to get to watching that one. Anyways, Philip Seymour Hoffman, he's a great actor. He plays his part really great too. He is Lancaster Dodd, the Master, kind of the leader of this cult, which is very similar to Scientology. When Freddie meets him, he meets him on a yacht, and I know that, what's his name? Ron Hubbard, the guy who pretty much invented Scientology, the founder of it, creator, whatever you want to say, I know he was like the captain of ships and stuff, and so there's the whole similarity with being on the boat, and also there's a part when they meet where the Master questions Freddie, and they have like a session where he asks him a lot of questions, personal questions about his life, and he records it. And that reminds me very much of like a personality test in Scientology. So I start seeing right off the bat a lot of similarities. Also, some of the beliefs of this movement or this cult, he talks about how, we have negative things from past lives that we need to get rid of, and that's kind of the same idea of Scientology. So there's a lot of different similarities, maybe a lot that I missed, but just on the first viewing, I picked up on those. So Philip Seymour Hoffman is Lancaster Dodd, the Master, and his wife Peggy, which Peggy might be Amy Adams. And there's a lot of different characters in this, and I got kind of confused about their relations to the other characters and stuff sometimes. If you've ever seen Breaking Bad, one of the white supremacist type character who gets killed in the end by Jesse, the one who shoots the boy on the bike, he's in this movie, and he is the Master's son, one of his sons. And he does a fine role in this movie. Their twisted relationship is the core of this film. The relationship between Freddie and the Master, the relationship between Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Their twisted relationship is the core of this film. That is a glorious and haunting symphony of color, emotion, and sound with camera movements that elicit an involuntary gasp and feats of acting that defy comprehension. Awarded Best Actor for both Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix. They deserve that. And the Best Director for Paul Thomas Anderson at the 2012 Venice Film Festival. The Master is a film which casts a spell like a fever dream. Stunningly photographed in 65mm, The Master stands as an undeniable cinematic experience. Will Freddie be able to outrun his past? Will the cause help or hurt him? Can this tortured, violent creature be civilized? Or is a man, after all, just a dirty animal? So Joaquin Phoenix plays the World War II veteran. At the beginning of the movie, we see him going through some different things. Kind of realize how crazy he is in the army, and he gets. They ask him. They show him ink blots, and they say, "What do you see?" And he sees a bunch of sexual perverted stuff. Sex is always on his mind. We see him drinking, and he ends up being a photographer. And he kind of gets in a fight with this guy he's taking a picture of. He's very rowdy and unpredictable, like I said. We see him making different concoctions. He'll make anything into a tonic. He'll use like the chemicals from his photo room to get drunk off of, and he mixes some other stuff. And he goes on from the photographing. He goes to another job where they're like working on a farm or like a cabbage patch thing, and he makes another drink with some chemicals or whatever. He gives it to a guy, an older man, and the people think that he poisoned him, and because of whatever chemicals he used, and he's saying, I didn't poison him, he just couldn't handle the drink. And so the people start running after him saying, that he intentionally did this, and he runs away. That's when he finds the yacht later on, and he gets aboard that, and that's how he meets the Master. And then from there, he's intrigued by the Master, and that's when they have the personality type session, the personality test thing, and which, like I said, he asks some very personal questions, and Freddie enjoys this. It's kind of like he's starting to have like a purpose. He's entertained by it. He's amused by it, and when the session is over, Freddie doesn't want it to be over. He wants it to continue, and the Master says, "Well, if you want to continue, then I'll ask you questions again, but this time you have to do it without blinking." And so there's these crazy tests in the film, and he realizes his animalistic ways, through his questions. The Master, he realizes that Freddie's an animal, and he kind of wants to reform him in a way. There are people who oppose this movement, because on this boat there's a lot of followers for this master guy, and there's people that oppose this movement. Like the master's written books or a book, and apparently he has claims that his teachings can heal people of cancer in a way, and people are very critical of that. And when they criticize him, Freddie, Philip Seymour Hoffman, gets very hostile towards them and violent, and he attacks the accusers. And so there's most of the movie is just the relationship between these two guys trying to reform Freddie, and he keeps kind of going back to his ways. This movie is pretty long. I don't know if it has the runtime on here, but I'm guessing that it's probably around like 2 hours. It seemed long anyway to me. Well, it says 137 minutes. Yeah, so I'm guessing it's around 2 hours, which I think is a good point of the film, and also kind of its flaw. The fact that it was really long, we really get to develop these characters, and it really makes it like an epic movie. And the cinematography and everything is really beautiful in this movie. It looks great, but I think at the end a little bit it could have been a little bit shorter, and it started getting a little bit confusing for me towards the end. And so I'll go more into the spoilers of the ending of the movie. There's a scene where late in the movie, Philip Seymour Hoffman's on a motorcycle, and he has like his son and his wife, and he has like Freddie out there, like out in the desert, and we're gonna play a game called Pick a Point, where you pick a point and you just drive the motorcycle to that point as fast as you can. And so when the master does it, and then he says, "Here, Freddie, you give it a go." And he says, at the bottom of that mountain or whatever, I'm going to go there. And he takes off. And I thought at that point that Freddie killed himself. But I guess he didn't. And maybe I thought it would have been good maybe if the movie would have ended there. I mean, maybe the movie's fine how it ended. I just... early on when he does the personality test, we find out that one of the things that Freddie, that bothers him or that he thinks about, is that he met this girl before he went off to the war. Find out that she was underage, like 16 or something, and he loved her, and he told her he was coming back, and he never came back to her, and he misses her, so he thinks about her. And also, he might have killed some people in the war, and so that could kind of haunt him. Maybe give us some kind of an idea of a reason why why he drinks and he's so crazy. But after the scene where he goes to pick the point, okay, and he drives off towards the mountain, and then the master's like, "Freddie," and he starts walking out towards him. And so that's when I thought, he killed himself or he died or something. But then it cuts off there, and then it takes off after that, where he is visiting the home of where the girl that he loved was, and her mom is there. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe this is like heaven, or this is in his mind, or this is the afterlife or something. But I don't think so, because the movie continues on from there. He goes there, he finds out that she's been married, she has kids, she's moved on, and, so it's a little bit depressing there. But he says that he's happy for her. And he says bye to her mom, and it's a little bit foggy. I only watched it once a little while ago, and after that, I think he ends up going back to the master. The master has written another book, and he's kind of bigger, known by more people. Maybe he's moved. But he goes back to him, and so throughout the movie, as they try to reform Freddie, he keeps coming back and trying to change, and the family members of the master try to convince him that it's not worth it, he's a lost cause, just let him go. And he says, no, if we fail him, then we fail, so he wants to keep continuing to try to help Freddie. And So at the end, he comes back like the final time to the master, and the master says, you can either stay with us and not leave again, or if you leave again, then don't ever turn back. I'm finished with you at this point. And so I think there's this kind of a parting of ways there at the end. It's kind of sad, and then he gets with a woman in the end, Freddie, and I had the impression that the end of the movie was that he was not reformed and that he was going back to his old ways, and it's like he just can't be reformed or whatever. But my friend that watched it said that he thought that it ended on a happy note where he met this girl, and he's now like having a happy life with her. And that's probably the case. That's probably what it is. I was just a little bit confused at the ending of that movie, and but having said that, I think that it was a great movie. I think that if I was going to rate it like a 1 out of 10, 10 being the absolute best or whatever, I'd say it's probably like a 9. There's not really a lot of flaws in this movie. I would suggest it to anybody who's into dramas, or if you're interested in kind of a picture of cults or something like that. It doesn't get a lot into that, but there's these different methods. Another thing that reminded me of Scientology is where they do this face-to-face thing where the master makes Freddie face his son, and they have to stare at each other, and they can't look away, or they have to start over again. And when they're staring at each other, one person will do whatever to the other person, say insulting things, anything to try to get a reaction at them, yell at them, whatever. And that's another kind of method of Scientology, I think, where they get the bull baiting techniques where they learn to kind of stare at people, through anything, and kind of some bizarre stuff. There's also a scene where he makes Freddie go back and forth between a wall and a window and tell him what he feels, and he has to do it with his eyes closed. And the wall's wood and the window's glass, and he keeps going back and forth and back and forth. And this scene goes on for quite a while, and it gets kind of tiring. But I think that's the idea, is that you're kind of feeling how Freddie's feeling. He's getting tired of it, and that kind of drug out for a while. But I get the idea of why. But yeah, I mean, it's a joyride. It's a fun movie. The acting is wonderful. It's the way it looks and the way it's filmed is wonderful. And I love the movie a lot, so not really much negative to say about it. Like I said, I think maybe it went a little bit long. It's a little bit confusing at the end, but it needs multiple viewings. So I just have to watch it again. And I guess it's kind of good if people get different things out of the movie, get different ideas on the ending. That's not really negative, so... Anyways, guess that's all I gotta say. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more. God bless.